Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of the Berardi and Coke from the Ought Know Better podcast. I'm joined tonight by Paul from the Leeds Therapy. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad, thank you. And pod regular, is it regular enough, Lou? I don't know, you've been on a few times with us now, haven't you? How are you doing, Lou?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. All good.
Good stuff. We will get an introduction going, and we'll try and make a bit of sense of the madness that happened yesterday in the Cardiff game.
Hi, this is Don Matteo, and you are listening to the Ought to Know Better podcast. Let's do this.
Leeds are shit.
We're recording, you know.
Oh, shit.
We had a good start. I don't think we've got the personnel.
You can fucking laugh all you want, you absolute bellend.
I think about things. That's why you lot are idiots.
A melted version of a dick that's been shrink wrapped.
The absolute elite shithousery of this. No doubt I'll be getting some stick in the comments for some of the comments that I've made in... Oh, it started already. There we go. It has started. Yeah, I'm going to be getting some stick about that one, but we'll come on to that. We're going to have to try and make some sense of it, but I guess the first things first. The team, the lineup. Lou, I guess from your perspective, we saw Byram drop out. He'd played a lot of football. We saw Piroe start, where a lot of people had been pushing for a bit of a change up front. Were there any real surprises in the lineup for you?
Not really, because whatever we say, Farke doesn't think the same. So, like ever. But I think we should be reassured by that by now. Some are, some aren't. But I think that the key one for me yesterday, and that was probably proved in the performance, is that when the lineup came out, I was feeling quite positive, just because we saw at the end of the last game before Cardiff how much of a difference Farke makes when he came on, and although Byram does a solid job, what he offers at left back is literally opposite ends of the spectrum to what Farke gives you. So, and that was proved yesterday. Certainly in the attacking sense, not that we have to do a lot of what Farke isn't as good at, but I think that's the key one, really. I think when Farke plays, we play really well. He links up really well with Solomon, and Solomon links up really well with Dan James. Yesterday, coincidentally, a good attacking performance. They're our three best players. So Piroe will always be a weird footballer, and that's the only way I can describe him, really. He's a weird footballer who does a lot of nothing and then a lot of some good stuff, I guess, is the sort of uneducated way of saying what Piroe does. Yeah, it's so strange because he can play really shit and amazing all in one game. It never feels like a complete performance with him, even when he scores. But ultimately, you can't really knock his record. But I think he'll continue to be one of those frustrating footballers. You know, when Bamford was playing really well, I think sometimes he'd just be on his day. He would be unplayable, and it would be a complete striker's performance. Piroe's never going to give you that, I don't think. Joseph might one day, certainly not this season, but pleased for him to get his goal, but he's definitely not a starter, I think, unless we were to sign somebody in the next couple of days. Piroe's your man, I think.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. Just to touch on the thing that you said there, you know, you mentioned Solomon and you mentioned Farke. I think you see so much more from Solomon as well, don't you, when he's got that overlapping run down the outside of him. And Farke's happy to do that all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So, Paul, then, in terms of the changes in midfield as well, so we'd seen Gruev come in. No problem.
Good evening.
Was it a nice tea?
Everyone. It bloody was. You have to make me a smidge late. I apologise. Hello, everyone. Hello.
An hour ago, I wasn't on at all.
I know. Just so happens that it can change, can't it? So quickly.
It can. Yeah, sorry, Paul. In terms of the midfield, so Tanaka and Rothwell back in. I mean, they have played so well together, but was it a bit of a surprise to you not to see Gruev, or was that an expected change?
It was an expected change for me because, I mean, regardless, I know Cardiff were unbeaten in like 8-7 in the league and 1 in the cup as well. So, excuse me, but what you've got with the team, with Rothwell is somebody that is going to drive the ball forward, and he did that a lot yesterday. and he did it really, really well. So I was happy to see that, and happy to see that come in. And what was really nice, obviously, the switch when Tanaka came off, and then they brought Ampadu in into the centre of midfield, and it still all looked the same. I agree with Lou. I thought Firpo was the big change overall. Firpo was the difference maker yesterday. He freed up Solomon to cut in, to move. Whereas, don't get me wrong, Byram has been fantastic, and he's been Mr. Uber reliable, and he's you can rely on him to do what you need to do. But in terms of attacking prowess, Firpo is he's just a different level, isn't he, in terms of what he can bring forwards. And it just, like I say, it allows Solomon to pick up the ball. It allows him to cut inside with an overlapping runner onto him so they can get the ball out wide. And it just proved to work fantastically well, because he's got 3 assists in the game, hasn't he, yesterday, which is just really, really good to see. I was really impressed with Piroe yesterday, I have to say. I thought his overall link-up play was good. Clearly, he is aware of the fact that Cameron Archer might be coming through the door. I don't think it's any surprise that he played really well yesterday. There's nothing wrong with that for me. I thought his setup he did a 1-2 with Brendan Aronson, and it wasn't really a 1-2. It was a 1-2 against Brendan Aronson before he put the ball through. But he just seems
this is the one where Aronson knew absolutely nothing about it, like the goal
Aronson,
that Tanaka scored off him.
Yeah, the ball just comes off of the back of Aronson's legs, and then he just puts it through to James, and then James just squares it all the way across for Solomon to score. And the whole thing about yesterday, about everything, the midfield, the pressing, the closing down, the just not giving them any time whatsoever on the ball was just lovely to see. And when we don't take our foot off of the throat, that's what happens. That's the type of game that we end up playing. And just, brilliant. Mele made a couple of saves, which is good to see, doing his job.
Yeah,
like
one was a really good save, actually.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was.
And at an important time of the game.
Is that the one that he could have grabbed as well? Is that the one that you could see coming from about 5 mile away, and he had all the time in the will to save it? But I'm not gonna go in too much on Melia.
No,
it's really
harsh. Angry at him at the moment. I'm not angry at him at the moment, so we'll just give credit where it's due for now.
I think there were one in the second half where he could have come and tried to claim it, and I think there's an element of Rodon just basically went, "This is mine. I'm winning this," and he did. But so I was sat in the cop and I was right behind the goal, and you could hear Rodon screaming, and he went up and he won it, and I think that's the point at which it landed at Tanaka's feet, and then he sold the entire Cardiff team for an hot dog, and then just turned around on it and had 20 yards of space, and it was like, fucking hell, we're just ace, aren't we? But that was one where Melia stayed at home, where in other situations I think he'd have come out and he'd have flapped and there might have been an issue. He needs to get better. Across the pitch we can see that when it works really well. When it's not quite working, it's mostly decision making. Melia, Aronson, sometimes it's Piroe, sometimes it's Joseph, making the right decisions at the right time. And I think it's a bit of an embarrassment to riches that we've got on the wings, and they're really driving us forward and leading the way out there. So Smarty, we were just talking about the lineup and so on. Just a question to you then is, how big a deal is it having Pascal Struijk back on the bench and being able to see him come on? And it looked like he'd not been out. Bearing in mind how long he was out last season for, how big a deal is it to get him back at this point?
Well, he's clearly a massive influence as well behind the scenes. He's one of the vice captains, isn't he, as well? So he's got that influence as well in the changing room. To even have him around. Even having like people like Stuart Dallas around last season. He were crocked, but we still had them sort of players. Those big personalities and stuff in the changing room. It helps. But to get him back in the team as well, that's just obviously a massive positive. Personally, I think Ampadu and Rodon are our best centre-back pairing. I have thought that for quite some time, because it allows Tanaka and Rothwell to control the midfield. I think, we really missed Rothwell against Burnley, and I think with Firpo and Rothwell back in the team yesterday was just like an injection of just pure brilliance. I've got a real hankering for Rothwell. I love him. I think he's fantastic. I think he's generally one of our best players. And I think he goes under the radar a lot because he keeps himself busy and he runs himself ragged. It was like 80th minute and he was absolutely bursting through centre of midfield. And I was just like, this guy, he got rested against Burnley, obviously, but he's absolutely busting his gut. We're not even his team. He's on loan. I mean, there's a question: would you sign him if we go to Premier League? I mean, he's really, really good. I mean, obviously we're happy with Tanaka and stuff. He's an absolute cut above, and like you say, some of the stuff, some of the turns and the vision and just the calmness on the ball, he's just sublime. But Rothwell, those driving runs that he does, feeding ball to Aronson sometimes, he might get on the end of it, he might not. But that's Aronson. That's why we love him, isn't it, Gilly? But Strike. We'll go back to him. It's great to have that option as well, though, from bench. And to be fair, if he does come back into the starting 11, then I don't really mind. I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Stunning throw ball for Firpo as well for the for the cross for the goal as well. Brilliant.
Yeah, he's very good at them sort of balls though. Those sort of players, isn't he?
Mm.
That was probably my favourite goal, actually. Joseph's goal yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Was that?
I think Dan James first. The first one where
the stroke pass to Firpo to Joseph.
Yeah.
That's my favourite goal from yesterday for sure.
Joseph.
I mean, we scored that goal about 3 times, didn't we?
Yeah. We were
different players in,
each other, weren't they?
Yeah. No, I was really pleased for Joseph. I think if we look at some of the change, I know we're jumping back and forth in the game, but if you look at some of the changes, I think Nonto came on and scored pretty much straight away, which were through 2 defenders, and it sold the keeper, because I think Anik had just started going to his right.
Yeah.
And then he ends up diving to his left and just not getting near it. It's a great finish, switching it back into inside post. There were a couple that it looked like Ramazani was so desperate to get himself on the score sheet, and there were definitely one where Joseph were furious, absolutely fuming at him, where he was being marked, but he was goal side of his man. And so there were one that Aronson, I'm reading comment at the bottom. The one that Joseph were fuming that he didn't get off Ramazani, but he were very, very close to scoring himself. I guess comment from Lou. I'll come to you on this one. How demoralising must it be to have played 65 minutes against Dan James and Solomon and been turned inside out, and then you see Nonto and Ramazani coming on?
Yeah, and him scoring after a minute with what wasn't really even a powerful shot, was it? I think keeper just lost sight of it, maybe. I think that's the thing about people are saying we don't need a striker, I think Farke's using the squad a lot better than he was last year, and the rotation is a really massive part of why we're doing well. The point that Smarty made about Rothwell being really good, his consistent levels of performance did dip off for a couple of games, and I think that was just because he needed a rest. He's had a bit of a rest. He had a game out of the team, and he's come back and he was brilliant yesterday. And I think the rotation is a really key part of that. So say, for instance, Cameron Archer does come in. We're not signing him to say, right, Piroe, you're now on the bench because we've got a better striker. I think a loan would be a better option if that does happen, so we don't have an obligation to buy. But to have a different striking option on the bench is great for rotation, just to see us over the line. I don't think it's essential. If we don't sign anyone in the next couple of days, I don't think it's necessarily important. But I think having that embarrassment of riches, I guess, having Nonto and Ramazani coming on and looking as good as they did, and I think that's the sharpest Nonto's looked for a while. But I think some of that perhaps would have been just because all of those attackers sitting on the bench were going, I fancy a bit of this today, because this lot, I can't believe they came to Elland Road and did what they did, to be honest, and it definitely isn't happening again this season. We're not going to see anyone else come and do that.
Why do you think they turned up and did what they did? Do you think they had a bit of a spring in their step because of the unbeaten run that they'd just been on?
I don't think Cardiff are going to get relegated playing like that. I think that's the general idea of what they're doing is, and we're on an 8-game unbeaten run. I think they've had success playing that way against worse teams. They've just happened to come up against at the moment the best team in the league, and they got absolutely battered. I was expecting a championship-y fixture, as I would every single week, every time Leeds play, and it was a real lift for a lot of the team to have been able to play in a game like that. I think that team have been gasping for a team to do that. We didn't do that to Plymouth, who are a much worse team than Cardiff, and I think that speaks volumes, really. No, nobody is ignorant enough. Frank Lampard, as irritating a bloke he is, there's no way on earth on Wednesday at home even Doesn't matter. They're not going to try and do that. Even if they have got some better attacking players, not a chance in hell is that going to happen again at Elland Road, let alone away from home, because we've just proved what would happen if every team did. We'd have won loads of games 7-0 if teams did that, what Cardiff did. So I don't think it's ignorance or stupidity from their coach. I think he was just sticking to his guns with what they're planning to do for the rest of the season. And yeah, they did look bang average, but I don't think they're relegation fodder or anything like that. It was bold, their manager sat in the stands and just watched it unfold, didn't he? And it was just painful for him, but brilliant for us.
I think there are a couple of shots that I've seen in the highlights and stuff. Their substitutions. I think when the fifth went in, and then they were all just like, like kind of doing nothing. Did you see the reaction of their right back when Ramazani tackled him and had that shot that just went just literally a cock air off the post? It kind of just went like that. I went, oh God, and kind of run back. I thought that was hilarious. Obviously, I couldn't see that from where I'm sat, but I thought it did tickle me when I watched it on the highlights. Some really good reactions from some of their players if you look out for them.
The big difference for me this season, and I think it's been highlighted in the game yesterday, is the non-reliance on one particular player compared to last season as to what we've had this season. If you look at it now in terms of who's scoring regularly, you've got James, Piroe, Aronson, Solomon scoring, you've got Ramazani that's scoring goals, you've got Nonto that's scoring goals. The goals are really, really well spread across the team, whereas last season, everybody knew what we were going to do. Yeah, sometimes they couldn't stop it, but just everybody knew what we were going to do last season. This season, for me, it's completely different in terms of the way that we're playing, which is really good to see. Just to go back to Lou's point about the rotation of the actual squad and just the use of the players that we've got now in terms of how we're playing, it's so much better to see. We're a much more harder to work out team compared to what we were last season, where last season it was very much Rutter, Somerville, Rutter, Somerville, Rutter, whereas this season it's not like that at all now, which is really, really good and stands us in good stead. Yesterday was, all right, excuse me, they're not, massively high up the table and everything, stuff like that, but it's a bit of a statement. It's like, all right, fair enough, Sheffield United, you've gone and bought Brenton and Diaz, who, I mean, I don't understand people's fascination with him, but that's just me. But we've gone and done that yesterday, and we've kind of put everybody on notice, and we just need to keep putting everybody on notice like we have been doing.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing about Sheffield United, I think, is that yes, they have signed some players, but if Sheffield United go up, they're stuck with those players. Is Tom Cannon going to be a good striker in the Premier League? We've signed nobody with the good balanced squad we've got, with it in mind that if we go up, we can build a Premier League squad and around what we already have. They're stuck with those players on perm who some are tried and tested in the Premier League. What's going to happen to them? Like, they've gone all in to get themselves promoted, but they've got a couple of bang average Championship players that are potentially going to be playing, most likely going to be playing in the Prem next year. So we're in a really good position in that way. And what you said about Reter and Somerville, they burnt out towards the end of last year. Without our reliance on two players like that this season, there's less chance of a 4-0 away at QPR than there was. And those sorts of results and that sort of burnout. And that burnout did happen. We might not have seen it or felt like it was coming before our eyes, but they were crap in the playoff final as well, let's be honest. But they were in the 5 games before that. I think that's probably less likely to happen this season. It definitely feels different, and I think you're right. It's the balance and the depth. So the need for signings that some fans are obsessed with isn't essential. If we get one, we get one. If we get none, we don't need to worry. Unless we get 3 or 4 injuries, then all of a sudden it might look a bit different. But touch wood, so far it's been fine.
You get that's your Gilavugi situation, though, isn't it? When you've got quite a few players out injured, and it's like, oh, we are very, very thin in this position. And like you said, we'd be naive to sign another one like that to replace a striker. I think we are. Depends how you think about this, but we are in a really, really good position where we can really sort of pick and choose who we come, and rightly so that, you know, these players will do the same for us. But really, looking at it, chances are we are going to go up this year. Quickly, touch wood. But, you know, you'd be looking at that. Have we got enough to get by? You know, are we going to buy a championship sort of standard player that is going to bomb out, like you say, if we get promoted? So, that, you know, the mix has to be right. But, you know, with the squad depth and stuff like that, we are well covered in most positions. And I think, you know, Farke doesn't get enough credit for like you said, that all these players that we're seeing, you know, the rotation of the squad and stuff like that, that's massive. There's people quick enough to give him some shit about the substitutions that he make. Yes, we see him, you know, it's usually 68 to 75 minutes that we see these substitutions, but no one on the same hand gives him enough credit for making these sort of moves, you know, like I said, the squad rotation and stuff like that.
Well,
he deserves massive credit for that.
Take DJ off at 65, I think he did yesterday. He was like, this
I'd
guy
be
is
fuming if I were him.
Amazing 65 minutes.
But no one will say anything about it though, Lou. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying not to put a negative spin on this. I'm saying, but when it goes well, no one bats an eyelid. You know, if we get a draw or we might lose, oh well, Farke's shit, substitutions and blah blah blah. I'm just like, we need to give Farke some credit for you know, for how he's managing this squad at the minute, especially after such a busy Christmas period as well.
He has said, "Don't think that we don't know what fans are saying. We hear you loud and clear." I'm sure he reads some things and go, maybe I could make a sub on 65 and not 70. Maybe he's doing these sort of little passive aggressive substitutions just to keep us happy. You know, like you don't like. I think he's willing to adapt, and if these are really small margins, aren't they? You know, like you say, do you care about subs when you beat someone 7-0? No, but they're key because Dan James had half an hour rest where we're playing again in 3 days, another big game that were ultimately a bogey team last season and are going to be completely different sides to the team we beat 3-0 at Elland Road. And they were very, very poor when they came. It was a very one-sided game.
Yeah.
I think just one point to make on all of that is I actually do still feel like we are light up front because Piroe's scoring a lot of goals and he's playing at 9. It's absolutely great that Mateo Joseph's come in and got a goal. You know, we were saying in the stands while the game was going on, we really need him to get himself a goal. It'd be such a big deal and such a big lift for him to get a goal. And it had gone such a time without. But anything serious for Piroe that's out for some time, and you are thinking, you know, it's square pegs round holes then. Or it's Mateo Joseph that I just don't think he's ready yet. I think he's got the attributes to be a good player in that position. But all of a sudden it looks, you know, we cannot rely on Bamford being available. He's out again. Piroe's available and you know, he looked good yesterday and, you know, he's scoring goals. But you take him out of that team and although we're good on the wings, we look a little bit light then, or very
all honesty,
light.
Though, Gilly, you could have put one of us 4 in there yesterday and would have expected to score. Do you know what I mean? You know, a little bit of hindsight or whatever. But you know, like you said, people are related, etc., with the performance and the result, etc. But it's not every week that we're hammering people 7-0. You know, we're grinding out draws or we're grinding out you know a lot tougher fixtures because you know Paul's already said we don't play teams that play as open as that. You know, 9 times out of 10, these teams will just literally sit there and park the bus, and that's where we need that little bit of quality that, you know, maybe Brendan Aronson doesn't bring or, you know, that Piroe doesn't have. They all played well yesterday, but it's those really difficult games, and we've got quite a few difficult teams coming up now where we could do with that just a little bit of an injection of quality up front. Basically, we need someone to replace Bamford because he's broken, and I doubt we'll see him again this season.
And that's the point.
Yeah, yes.
Sorry, Paul, go on.
Yes. So Bamford's been broken for ages, though. That dog won't hunt anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you know, him coming into the side last season had a real positive influence on us, but I can't see that happening again. And it does feel like we need someone, whether it's somebody from the bench that's wanting to prove themselves, somebody like Solomon that's had a rough injury time and needs to have a period of time out of a Premier League side just to get some minutes into his legs, whatever that might be. It feels like we need something up front as part of the squad. You know, we have got the smallest squad in the division. He's handling it really well. We do have an embarrassment of riches on the wings, but it feels very much like we've got few options down the centre. And for me, I think bringing somebody in that position that would be a big deal and would take some of the weight off Piroe as well. Because going into April, if he's still our only realistic starting 9, that's a long old season for him.
Well, when you look at it now, goals and assists and stuff, he's on what? He's on 17. Dan James is on 14, and Manor Solomon's on 11 overall. But Piroe's got 12 for the season already, goals himself. So he's just like, when he got the penalty, it's like, you know how there's normally jeopardy that comes with the penalty, and you're just like, oh my god, need him to score the penalty.
Well,
but everybody
depending who's taking it.
Yeah, if he's just going to score, it'll be fine. Won't be a problem.
Yeah.
Every time he goes to take a penalty, I've got no issue. I just know he's going to score because he's just clinical.
He is our number 1 penalty taker, isn't he? If Strout was on the pitch, it still would have been Piroe, wouldn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It would have been.
Yeah. There was a guy behind me yesterday who put his hat over his eyes when we had a penalty, and I'm like, mate, we're already 3-0 here.
Yeah, it's 3-0.
what are you doing? It doesn't matter if we miss. It's not Bamford. There's a good chance he's going to go in.
This guy is damaged, bless him.
Well, he is.
There's a lot of that.
Oh god, he's like, oh no, I'm like, what's wrong? Yeah, we're 3-0.
Mate, it's not 2-2. It's not the last minute.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to pop the momentum graph up now. And just before I do, I'm just going to say, at half-past time, I thought that there was because of the way that the Leeds history has gone, at half-time, I thought it's only 2. Even though we were dominant, I thought it's only 2. But you look at the state of the momentum graph, and it is just...
That's bad,
it's difficult to even really qualify it, isn't it?
When we've seen similar momentum graphs, so we haven't been 7 goals...
Yeah,
have we?
True.
It's been like maybe 2 or 3. You might. I mean, to be fair, after those first 2 goals went in, yes, we did have a lot of obviously progressive play and stuff, and they didn't get a sniff really. But there's always that, like you just said, there's a bit of jeopardy there. There's always that little bit. How many times have we been, up against Cardiff? Specifically to Cardiff. I think we drew 3-3 with them. In a very very similar fixture. So it was like, that 3rd goal went in and I thought, nah, they've given up now. That's it. And then it just kept coming and coming and coming out. It's like, absolutely.
The feeling I'd have, though, as well with that is, like, we scored 2 quick goals against Watford. And we thought, my God, like, this is going to be a cricket score. And it did turn out that way. And they had maybe 15, 20 minutes of probably, even still now, the team that have had the best spell at Elland Road this season, where they were dangerous. And we really had to dig in to get that result that day. So, yeah, Gilly's right. I mean, there's never any guarantees at 2-0 because a momentum shift can change. And I think that's probably why things like like you say about the 3-0 and the 3-3 at Cardiff, when Cardiff came back, and it was just disaster. But, yeah, no worries at 5-0, obviously.
I don't know. There's some jeopardy in there.
I did actually say, late come back for them. I think they might have got ball into hour and a half. I thought, steady on,
Yeah, it's a difficult one. But I think one of the biggest things this season is the atmosphere at home. Is Farke football boring? Just to touch on the atmosphere, Smarty, you're in South Stand. It tends to be good. I were in the Cop. It tends to be poor. Yesterday were electric for pretty much all of the game, even early on. Was it similar? I know that they didn't sell all the tickets. I think the lower bit with Leeds fans, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So they didn't sell all the tickets. But were they in good form?
I think
the guy in the tent?
Their fans, literally, up to the first goal, and that were it. Deathly silence. That were it. We had a few Jimmy Saviles, obviously, that's literally it. But yeah, it would absolute deathly silence from them. And it would just... There is no better place to be than the South Stand when we've hit top form and we're absolutely thrashing.
Bastards.
There is no place I would rather be, honestly. Absolutely nowhere. We've got bored, so we found a.
Then when you're winning that match, then there's no point.
Well, we were 2-0 up, and
we win this one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, they were worse than that. They were worse than that. He's got a sheep up his jacket and doing all sorts of stuff.
The rumour was that you had chinos on underneath the tent as well, wasn't it? So.
Oh really? I don't know. I couldn't see it. Mate, them long coats that bloody most women wear. To be fair, yeah. He had one of them on, but it was massive. It was literally like a tent. You could see him a mile away. What the freaking hell's he got on there? Like a freaking half man, half mattress. Honestly, I've never seen out like it before.
Yeah, no,
they're called dry robes. This looked like a coat. I've got a dry robe. I'll be honest. So I must be a woman.
Do you walk your dog in it?
I've transitioned on this pod to a woman.
Do you walk your dog in your dry robe?
Yeah, of course I do. Without pants on.
You're one of them, are you?
What do you wear on your feet?
Trainers or walking boots.
That's excellent.
Why?
I half expected Crocs or
I thought it were going to be Crocs.
Well, no, I don't.
Not even Lou wears Crocs, Smarty. That's the message you're taking from this.
Mate, even I wouldn't wear a dry robe and Crocs, mate.
Just one fod at a time. One fad.
I don't know if that guy had Crocs on, but he didn't half get some. He didn't half get some stick for it, like, you know.
And it is a long way to Cardiff when you shit. We enjoyed that.
Indeed.
We did enjoy it. So even in Cop, it were good atmosphere. I mean, I were like I say, I were close to goal. So you get all the noise from behind you anyway when you're towards the front of the stand, don't you? So
we did actually hear the Cop a few times, which is rare these days. We did hear it a few times, to be fair.
Yeah, it has been poor, but no, it were better yesterday, and it was throughout. It wasn't just 5, 6, 7. It was better throughout, so that was good. So just to touch on, go on.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Do you think, in terms of atmosphere-wise, do you think that maybe the home fans are now starting to believe a little bit more that this season is the season that we go up? So they're just relaxing a little bit more. Whereas a lot of this season, I've been to quite a few home games this season. There's that kind of palpable tension that's been there quite a bit. But whereas yesterday, obviously, I didn't get to go to the game yesterday, but watching the game, you could almost feel it was very celebratory, whereas before it hasn't been for quite some time. But yesterday felt more celebratory, so it's almost like the crowd starting to believe it a little bit more now.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it's that, and I suspect there's certainly an element of that, or how much of it. I've seen a lot online of we've got to try and enjoy it. We're really good. We're top of the league. We've just got to try and enjoy it. And before the game, there were a big group of us yesterday, and it was nice seeing some of the people. There were a few that had travelled from down south that had come up together, and it was good seeing everybody. And there were just a good feeling. So a lot of the experience I had was related to people that I'd not seen for some time. But on the concourse, in the stands, it just felt positive even before kickoff. So I'd gone. I think I went 3-0 on our pod. And then I woke up in the morning, I'm like, fucking Cardiff, it's going to be tighter than that. I probably got 2-1. They've scored in the last fucking 18 games or whatever run they were on in terms of scoring in games, which is completely the opposite of Burnley, wasn't it? Who weren't scoring any goals but weren't conceding any. And I'm thinking, I fucking hate Cardiff. The bastards. Cardiff in the FA Cup, wasn't it? That beat us in that terrible season when the wheels started coming off when we were really good just after the Champions League days, and it were a bit of a bin fire. It was Cardiff that kind of really put it to us at that point, and there's been a few attritional games against us in more recent years. So they're not a nice opposition. So it would, for me, it was a bit extra that we were able to do that to them yesterday. But it just felt positive.
And you have to do it. Because if you don't embrace that inner hate that you've got for another club, even if it's something that happened 20 years ago, then football isn't for you. I don't care that they're crap now. If you beat a team 7-0 and they've travelled from Wales, let them know it. We've all been to away days where we've been miserable and we're like, why do I bother doing this?
Yeah.
We didn't have to feel like that yesterday. So make sure they felt like crap all the way home to Wales. Yeah.
Because we've been on the wrong side of it plenty. Mm-hmm. Somebody mentioned to me Wigan not so long since, and I'm like, oh fucking Blackpool. And the reason that it was mentioned is this is the first time we've had so many shots on goal since that game. But that's the game that we lost. 29, yeah.
29 shots, 12 on target.
and the last time we had so many shots were when we lost to Wigan. 10-man Wigan at that. So, it is a big deal, and you've got to make the most of it. I think, one of the things that,
there he is. Legend himself.
Bless him. We should have sent him an invite to come and give us some his thoughts. I mean,
I've
I don't know
not
if
watched
you guys
his,
have watched
his coverage of it yet.
Oh, it's good.
Genuinely
I mean, I
watch
do.
it.
I mean, he's a nice
Brilliant.
lad. He is a nice lad, and he's got some good content. But I didn't. I feel sorry for him when he was like 6 fucking nil, and then it's 7-0. I think he wanted to throw himself over the edge of that stand, if I'm honest. But it's good. If you haven't seen it, it's very, very good. Good episode.
I think we can all agree he was probably the only fan in that stand we'd have felt, mildly sorry for.
Absolutely.
Pretty much.
Just because most of the time we do enjoy his content in other podcasts. It is funny. Yeah.
And, like I say, it's not been a happy time against them for us. Since 2002, with the FA Cup, wasn't it? It's not been a great fixture for us, so it's nice to be able to do that. It's also nice to be able to look at the table. So, I touched on the comment about boring Farke football. I think the nail's been hammered into that coffin. But Smarty, how good does it feel looking at the table? 2 points clear only, but that's really 3 points because we've got double Sheffield United's goal difference. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Our goal difference is 41 and theirs is 20. It's a big deal, isn't it?
It's ridiculous, yeah. I mean, I'll say it again, there doesn't seem to be really any team that can go toe-to-toe with us in this league. There isn't anyone that does. We discussed before the Cardiff game that I half expected them to come and give us a good game because they were in reasonable form, etc. And I thought, it's Cardiff. We don't tend to do really well against Cardiff, etc. But once the goals started raining, it's like, who's really going to trouble us? I mean, Burnley have to shithouse a frigging draw, and they shithoused the win against us as well last time we bloody played them. That slip up from Solomon, and any team that comes and tries to play football against us, they really do have to be on it because otherwise you're just going to get punished. Yes, we do have very good strikers. We do have very good wingers, etc. Our whole team is pretty much pedigree. You can look through. A couple of their players I thought were a bit off it. Some of the quality in their team, but it's to be expected because they're a championship team, a lower sort of championship team. We are very, very fortunate to have the kind of players that we do in this team, and we should really be in those sort of positions. It was always going to be between us, Burnley, Sheffield United, and maybe Sunderland are a bit of a surprise package. I half expected West Brom to be up there as well. But
I think if
it's
they
a
don't get a
fantastic
result
feeling.
tomorrow night, though, we'll sort of maybe see Sunderland fall away. We get up to a 10-point margin. You're not fancying Sunderland to come back from that to get ahead. That they've done really well. I think one of the things as well, I didn't expect that point against Burnley to look as good as it did. Like in the next result, them dropping points away to Portsmouth and us picking 3 points up at home, I think is really big. I think 5 points isn't loads, but it does put pressure on them for their next game. Oxford are no mugs. They ever since they lost to us 4-0, Gary Rowett came in and they've been pretty good. Oxford, Dennis.
So they're unbeaten run as well.
Yeah, and if your party piece is drawing 0-0 and you're Oxford, you're fancying that.
Yeah.
Their main attacking outlet is Jadon Anthony, who sat on our bench last year. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but
he's doing all right this year.
It's not ideal. I know he is, but what else have they got? Not a lot.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of the squad that we've got, and you think against the showing that we put out yesterday, Paul, I'll come to you for this one. Farke's got a job on trying to keep everybody happy for the next fixture, hasn't he? Can you make a change? Bear in mind the changes that he made during the game. Can you make a change to the starting lineup going into next game, given what they've just done?
You'd say no, but he will. It's just the way that I see it going. For me, I see Ampadu moving back into the centre of midfield for the game against Coventry. That's the one that I do see happening. The rest all pick themselves, really. Firpo will definitely start. But I agree. I mean, you shouldn't be changing that lineup. But I know why. Because...
Well, Strauss' first pick.
Pardon?
Strauss' first pick and the captain. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so as well. But more than anything, he likes having that, particularly away from home. He likes having that sort of steal and bite that Ampadu gives you in the centre of the park, which is what he wants to do. So he'll play Tanaka and Ampadu in the centre of the park more than anything. That's the one thing that I do see him doing But it'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow up until, about 11 o'clock and whether or not that might affect anything. But that's the only change I can see happening. Maybe Byram coming in, maybe not. I don't think so. But we just need to offer Firpo a contract. We really do.
What, 1 year?
I'd give him 2. So at least if he does get sold or he does decide to move, we can still get some money off of him. If you give him 1, you still put yourself in the danger of not being able to make money off of it. So,
all right. So you're saying more as a money-making thing rather than him being like a staple in our potential Premier League side?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess it's not something...
That wasn't a confident yes, though, was it?
I see his point. I mean, I guess it's not always people don't always think about the business side of things in terms of the club making money from a player when it's just like, yeah, get him out, he's crap, we need a better left back. It's, I guess there is more to it. And I guess I hadn't even thought about that in truth. It was, is Firpo good enough to play left back? He'd probably be fine as a midfielder in the Premier League, but he's definitely not good enough defender.
Well, I was saying on another pod about over-unders for Firpo's positions that he played yesterday. And I think I got up to about 6 at one point yesterday. He was on the right-hand side at one point, and it was just like, just let him do whatever he wants to do. He just wanders around all over the place. It's brilliant.
He must be given that free role, though.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that concerns me, and, with players with the footballing intelligence of Rothwell and Tanaka, your fullbacks can do that. Bogle has been great getting forward in recent games. I thought he were really good again. Him and Dan James and Firpo and Solomon on the other side were really good. I think my concern, I wouldn't be offering Firpo a contract. I know that a lot of people might be talked out and coming and stamping outside my house, but for me, I picture Mo Salah and I'm thinking, he's not a good enough defender to play in the Premier League. He's great going forward, and at this level, he's a fantastic asset to have. I think about the Premier League.
People are good against Mo Salah, though, mate.
No,
that's why he's one of the best players in the world.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's just the toxic experience we had towards the end in the Premier League when, that specifically that Spurs game when we just had a new arsehole torn and Firpo again was on the right-hand side because he'd been given his man and he tracked his man, and all right, it would be Bielsa ball and he were doing what the player were doing what he'd been asked to do. It just didn't work. And a lot of that is hangover from the end of that season because it was torrid, wasn't it? Yeah. Whether he can do it or not, if he's got the appetite for it, great, fantastic. And he's an assist machine at the moment. Another 3, and not my man of the match, and he got 3 assists from defence. I mean, that's quite amazing. That's quite a thing.
For what it's worth, I think I'm with Paul. I would definitely give him a contract extension, just so we've got cover in the Premier League because we aren't blessed with numbers. We do have some good squad depth, but look past that bench, there isn't a great deal. And like we have in years gone by. We see a smattering of youth players, promising youth players, etc. We don't see that many of them, and that's because of the quality of that bench, But past that, really, where are we? So Firpo, I'd quite happily see Bamford. I would happily never see Bamford in a Leeds shirt again, ever. Quite happily, because I just don't think he brings anything anymore, and hasn't done for quite some time. I think the same as Meslier. I think it was time, definitely.
And everything he does do now is under scrutiny as well.
Yeah, and the fact that the crowd are shouting "yay" every time he makes a save or grabs a ball or whatever. He's literally been ridiculed by his own fan base.
Notable,
it's time. It's only a matter of time before you have to accept that your time at Leeds is probably done. But apart from that, everyone else, I'd be quite happy to see contract extensions, specifically Firpo as well, just to make sure that we've got cover in that position.
Well, some people are getting more annoyed even about the Meslier stuff now because now we're starting to look as though we might pull clear of third and it be a little bit more comfortable. I'm still seeing people saying now we're up to potentially 13 points clear we could have been if Meslier hadn't done this. So it's like some people are getting more angry by it, whereas we're just sort of, most of us are just happy with how it's going, But I guess they are sort of right. Without those howlers,
Fickle football fans, mate. There'll be people out there that won't be happy about beating bloody Cardiff 7-0. There'll be people making, but bloody hell, but we could have done this, and we could have done that.
Could have been double figures.
Sorry there, Fun Sponge. Get away from me. You need to go somewhere else for another week.
What did somebody say yesterday on Twitter? I'll always call it Twitter. Knew Piroe and Aronson would turn up today. Just saved the 49ers a fortune. We were 5-0 up when he put that out. 5-0 up when he put that out.
Can you imagine your brain being wired like that, though? You wouldn't enjoy anything in life at all.
Oh, there's people that put in there that like about Farke, he doesn't. When somebody comes and plays in a particular way, you can't do X, Y, and Z. It's like, we're top of the fucking league. We're top of the league.
That's what I mean.
Scoring for fun.
Brendan Harrison scores a goal, and you've got people that support Leeds going, "Oh, the 49ers are fucking loving this." Yeah.
Hopefully. They're the ones investing a load of money, so you'd like to hope so.
Yeah.
It's incredible, really, isn't it? But I think that is the toxic relationship that some fans have with the club because of the pain that we've been through. So you can understand where people are coming from, and I think it's so crucial we get promoted this season. And as many people have said, it's about and as we all said, or a lot of us said to Ipswich fans, Leicester fans, Saints fans last season, enjoy the journey because the destination's horrendous. Yeah. And look where they all are now. It is a torrid time that you get. But we have to enjoy the journey. We do, because we're really good. We're top of the league and we are smashing it. We've just won 7-0. The goal difference is impeccable. If you can't enjoy this, what's the point?
There has to be lessons learned, though. If we do go up, there are people still within the club that know what happened last time, know the mistakes they made last time. And these players we've got, if we don't go up this season, this is going to be one hell of a fire sale. Like, we've got loads of really good players now, but next season in the Championship, I dread to think what a potential Leeds team could look like. It is important. And I think the point Paul made about fans starting to feel a little bit more comfortable, particularly at home, maybe after like this result, I think that's really important because sometimes playing at home can actually, as we've seen, can be like more difficult. The more relaxed the fan base is, I think it will definitely rub off on the players, and the easier it could be. Bookies, other fans, neutrals will all say Leeds are up, Leeds are up. We know it's not as simple as that, but it would be nice to potentially be watching games in, end of March and April with it sort of knowing that we're sort of, up. But, never say never. But I think an awful lot will have to go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, Debs is making a point there in the comments with a couple fighting at the top of their field I left yesterday. What the fuck's that all about? That's not the only fight I heard of as well. There were one in the cheese wedge where there were a guy with his two daughters and there were a couple of kids in front of them that were in season ticket holders seats. So they must have got them on exchange and they were vaping. And it was just clouds of vape were going into his daughter's face, and she were crying. So this guy had had enough. He'd asked them to stop. He'd had enough. So he offered them out, both of them. And at half time, the kids were seen arguing with stewards, and they never went back to the seats. So, but yeah, I mean, even at that point,
that vape would disappear up his left nostril, I reckon, if they were doing that to my kids.
I absolutely am on the Normally, it's a case of live and let live. But if that's the situation, you do something about it. And if somebody carries on doing it, well, they deserve slotting. Ultimately,
yeah. I think that's the thing. You can't always assume when you go to the football that just because you all share the love for the footballer team that people aren't arseholes. But unfortunately,
yes,
they are.
Yes,
there are still loads of them.
Oh, yes, they're everywhere.
Plenty. Plenty.
They're everywhere. They've usually got a 2020 or 2019 creation date on their X profiles as well, usually.
Oh, Smarty's adopted the X. I'm a Twitter man still, as Paul said.
I do usually say Twitter as well. I feel bad. I feel dirty for saying that.
What is this X? Is that a porn channel?
That's what Smarty's been looking at. But we'll move on.
That's why I'm so red.
We're just going to flash up. Yeah, apparently. Yeah.
Mark Jones, I say I look red. It's all this X porn I keep looking at. Not the fact that my missus has got
He's trying to get
this
the blood
pissing
flow
house.
back into his arm. That's why he's leaving.
Yeah, that's it.
Just let the blood flow back in again. Jesus Christ. Fucking left bicep is massive. Massive. Forearm.
I'm going to speed. I'm going to move us away from this. No, stop it, Smarty.
Could build an house on that.
Moving on, I'm going to spin through some of the comments that have been started. Thank you very much. Glenn Hodgson says, Firpo got an overlap, underlap, number 10, and wherever he wondered yesterday, Rothwell can't be dropped right now. Smarty, can any of them be dropped right now? I know your opinion on whether you change your winning side.
Yeah, but that's been put to the test this year because we've seen so many changes, by Farke and his rotation of the squad. Do you know what? For the first time ever, I don't really care. I don't think there is a bad lineup at the minute because you can understand why he might make slight changes. He might take Firpo out and put Byron back in. From a more defensive sort of stature. It's one of them. I don't really mind. But we did say this when Stroik were looking like he were coming back, and Ampadu were looking like he might be able to obviously push up into the middle too. And then the discussion's like, well, which do you take out, Rothwell or Tanaka? Because equally, they've both been absolutely brilliant. So rightfully, you shouldn't really drop either of them. But Ampadu's probably our, certainly defensive best player, and he's our captain. So he has to be in the squad. So it's a very, very good headache to have. Although I'm not jealous of Daniel Farke.
It's a difficult job, but it's better that than the other way around. And the team picking itself because you've only got a bare 11. So, no, that's positive. Brins in the comments. Piroe is a lot like Jack Harrison. One very good game in 10. Needs to deliver that level of performance more consistently. He's scoring a lot. Lou, I'll come to you. He's scoring a lot of goals this season. And he's scored a lot of goals at this level for the last three and a half seasons. Is he one of those players that falls into that grey area of easily good enough for the Championship or maybe slightly too good? Will he make the step up?
He might get his chance. It's hard to say. Like I said, he's just a bit of a weird footballer, but his stats don't lie, and he's done it consistently. He's done it in what you'd say is an average Swansea team when he was there, which in some ways is more impressive because the service he's getting at Leeds is probably, certainly this season, way better than he'd have been getting there. He might not be getting upwards of 20 goals, but he's getting goals and assists. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. But he's just a bit of a strange footballer. So there is going to be always frustrations with him and always question marks around him. I'd be quite interested to see how he'd do in the Premier League. But I'd like to think we'd be ambitious enough to be going for a proven Premier League striker if that did come up and Piroe be more of a cover. I think sometimes when he drops back and isn't in that striker position, he's sometimes more effective. But we've seen him play in the 10 role where he's been anonymous. So it's really difficult to have a solid opinion on what he's best at. I think he's you take the rough and the smooth with Piroe and just you know what he does on a good day, and that can be a mixed bag. And what he does on a bad day can be worse than a mixed bag. So I don't know. But
it's a strange one, isn't it? Because it's almost like he lives in the wrong period. If he existed in a period where you could do 4-4-2 without getting overrun constantly in midfield, then that supporting striker almost would be perfect for him. It's ploughing a lone furrow or expected to do all of the creating in the 10. Like you say, he doesn't fulfill all the criteria of one or the other. He falls somewhere in the middle.
He reminds me a little bit sometimes of Rodrigo. Obviously, he's not as skillful as Rodrigo, but certainly the pace and fitness element of sometimes it just looks like he is running in treacle, Piroe. And I always used to think the same about Rodrigo some days.
Yeah.
When Rodrigo was fit and firing, he looked like a really good player and could be near enough unplayable. Piroe will never look like that, but the comparison I'm making is just I think that the lack of pace is sometimes and the lack of press. Football fans like to see their striker pressing and trying to close down. Piroe doesn't do that. He's always far too late. He isn't fast enough to close down. He isn't going to be, and even if he does pick up the ball in a high press, it's usually more beneficial for him to lay it off to someone else faster, and that's what he's good at, in fairness. But yeah, it is frustrating. But he's doing what he should be, in a nutshell. And yeah, I'd love to see what somebody like Cameron Archer's not got stats as good as Piroe in the Championship. Just, he's at one of the worst Premier League teams we've probably ever seen in Southampton. There's nothing to say that he'd come in and be any better, So yeah, he's just a different striker. He's a different option, isn't he?
Yeah, agreed.
He's matched his tally for last season as well, hasn't he? He got 17 G&A last season in 49 games, and he's done that already with 18 games left to go. So he's improved on last season.
Like Cup as well, for FA Cup as well.
Yeah. And he's on what, 12 now? 12 goals? Yeah, 12. He is on track actually to get to 20. Which I think is the magic mark. And actually, if you look at when Bamford was really good for us, and he was good in our promotion season and the first Premier League season, he was good. He got 16 and 17. He didn't get to 20. I expect that Piroe's going to outstrip the 16 that Bamford got in our promotion season, and he was really good that season. Now he did add a lot more in the Bielsa side than Piroe adds in this side. Yeah. But the job of a 9 is to score goals. He's doing it.
But what's his stats run? What? 21, 22, 24 goals, 22, 23, 20 goals, 23, 24, 16 goals. And then so far this season, he's on 12 goals. He scores goals.
It's a good record, isn't it, at this level? It is a good record. It'll be interesting, as you said.
It changes round because, Joseph was the first choice at the start of the season. Joseph had a really good pre-season. I said to my old man, Joseph's getting 15 goals minimum this year. He's got 12 goals to go to get that. It's weird how it goes. I didn't think Piroe was going to be the man this season, and he's ended up being the best option. Fair play to him.
Yeah, agreed. Steve Brown makes an interesting point. Smarty, I'll come to you for this one. He says, for me, that starting lineup would have beaten Burnley. Were we just a bit guilty of being too negative going into that game?
Negative or cautious? Yeah, I suppose, I think we said it afterwards, which was a wonderful Berardi and Coke, by the way. It was filled with all sorts of quality content. I think that, both managers were kind of sizing each other up, and a lot of people have likened it to a game of chess, where they're both, not wanting to make any mistakes and this, that, and the other. I think it was a safe team selection. I do think it'd have been a better... it's easy for us to say this in hindsight, No. But I think, I said on the Berardi and Cook against Burnley that we missed Rothwell. I think he's just that extra little bit of tenacity, that little bit of driving force in the midfield. And Firpo, like I say, you just don't get those sort of runs and those assists from Byram. As much as I do like Sam Byram, so those are two massive players that have come in and performed for us yesterday, where we didn't get that from the Burnley game. But at the end of the day, it is a good point to get away at Burnley. And they are very, very good defensively. So we can't moan too much, can we?
9, I think they've conceded all season, which is just incredible in itself.
But another 0-0 for them at weekend as well.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, 10 0-0s. I said, if 0-0 is your party piece in the Championship, then, law of averages says you're going to do well to go up. If they slip into the playoff places and they're playing against a free-flowing Sunderland, potentially, as an example, in the playoffs, then I'd fancy Sunderland.
It's a difficult one then, isn't it? Because if it is Sunderland to play against, if they get an early one, the game plan's gone.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you've got to change the approach. So it depends on what happens in that first 20 minutes. Because if it's a tight game and they're able to, to set up and they're not.
I'm not being funny. Really. They've got that Estev is a really good centre back. Say he gets injured.
Yeah.
I think Leeds would score against Burnley without him.
Or if their keeper goes. Their keeper's a big deal.
Yeah. And let's be honest, unless Burnley go up, he's not staying there. He'll be...
We should buy Trafford, absolutely.
100%.
He'll be England number 2, if not in the next.
How big a deal would it be to go get him now?
Imagine. That would be some pulling power, that wouldn't it? Just rock up to them there. Ding, ding. Come on.
I think these are going. Let's have you. The other night, I think that's probably unlikely now.
I'm not saying it's happening, but you know, it would
funny.
so weaken them. I mean, it'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? What a shithouse move that would be. Yeah, no, fine. Good comments. Ben Whitfield says, was a group of 4 lads behind us in Cop yesterday who travelled all the way from Chile on a Bielsa pilgrimage. Yet Luke can't make it to his spare room. Says everything about his work shy generation. I've not actually read the last line of that. Thanks.
I'm going to make sure he sees that.
Yeah. Screenshot. Somebody screenshot.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's brutal.
In fairness to him, it is coming out of both ends, and his family are unwell.
Let me just take a little. No.
Oh, he's loving it.
Sent as we speak. He'll be really glad someone said that.
I starred this one. The first game that season ticket holder Bryn misses for ages.
I know.
He says, I can't complain. Cheers. Gutted to miss game yesterday. Had to watch on phone. I mean, he was doing somewhat, I don't know what it wedding related or something like that. So he
suit fitting. It was a poor excuse.
Yeah.
He's had a suit fitting for a wedding. The absolute sponge. Poor excuse.
To be fair to him, I would have happily ducked some of the previous Cardiff games that we've had. So not so bad. But yeah, he really missed out on one there, I'm afraid. And then Paul Brennan says that match day vlog by the young Cardiff lad was first class. Steve, credit to the lad and respect when your team gets smashed 7-0. I just like saying it. 7-0.
The best thing about that video is right at the very end, you can see he's absolutely gutted, like absolutely wounded, and he's walking about. But thanks for lead. I think they give him some VIP treatment.
Yeah,
he Square Ball had got it. Yeah, with Angus Kinnear and stuff like that. So he'd got a bit of a tour around and met a few players, and he had a nice day.
Losing 7-0, I still think the worst part of his day would have been meeting Angus Kinnear.
Yeah, quite possibly. Definitely. For every single person ever. You little Tory. I'm not a Tory. You look like one. But anyway, yeah, he's right at the end of the show, and he's like, "But oh god, I'm so pissed off about it." But thanks to Leeds and Angus Kinnear and the Square Ball lads, you know, thanks for a great day out or whatever. You've just been dicked 7-0, and you still, you know, what a guy, what a little guy. If you haven't watched it, make sure you go watch it. Square Ball reposted it and stuff, but yeah. That Cardiff City fans content is very, very good. He's a very angry child, but it's funny.
Yeah, it is very good.
Good. Right. Okay. Just to wrap us up, then, I'm going to come to you and ask each of you your man of the matches. Smarty, I'll come to you first on the spot.
I'm going to go Daniel James because I know people will go for someone else.
Okay. Fair enough. Any hat nod to anybody else? Definitely Daniel James, but fair play played well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Paul?
Piroe.
Nice. Hat nod to anybody else?
Firpo.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Lou?
I think I said DJ yesterday. I don't think that's changed, and I have watched all 7 goals about 1,000 times since then as well. So, but my favourite goal was the Joseph one. It was such good football. Yeah, you could just pick any of 3 players really, but DJ was exceptional yesterday. Like he's come a level above almost from last season, hasn't he? Really?
He has, and he was good last season. And then unfortunate injuries and whatever else, and then had his face smashed in at Wembley, didn't he? Bless him. Yeah. It's a hell of a nose he's got on him now. But it's strange you say, Smarty, because mine were DJ as well. And
that's weird because I thought most would have gone Firpo, to be fair.
Yeah, for me it would definitely Dan James, and the reason that I say that is not only did he get the 2 assists for the first 2 goals and then win the penalty and then score his own goal, but actually it was him starting like house on fire. I think it was him that gave us the initial impetus. Because you were just at it right from the first second, and I think that we kind of built it on around that. So I think for me, there were lots of good appearances, lots of good performances, and I will say, because there's been a lot of comments in the chat about Aronson and about my take on him, I did say openly to lots of people yesterday, for 10 minutes in the second half, he actually looked like a footballer. He really did. Only for 10 minutes. He was arse in the first half. But,
slowly improving. It's slowly improving in your eyes. You know, by the end of the season, you'll say, you know what, Brendan Aronson's a bloody great player.
Fucking what?
I know you're freaking what.
He needs to be gone before we're in Premier League.
This is quite a big question because we've scored a lot of goals. But personally, my favourite goal, and I think our best goal of the season, was Aronson's goal away at Derby. Do you have a goal that you think is better than that?
Who is it that Dan James scored against at home when he absolutely rifled one into top left corner?
Oh, it was...
Where it just looked like it was like a side foot, but it just pinged.
It absolutely pinged.
Yeah.
Middlesbrough, yeah, because he'd missed a really easy chance just before it. And
right before it.
Yeah, and then scored after that and just.
There's been quite a few this season, but that for me, I mean, I love Dan
I like
James.
Tanaka's from outside box. That was such a tidy finish with a curler into corner from
Against
Tanaka.
Hull?
Yeah, I think it were Hull. Yeah,
but that you look back on them with a kind of disdain because of what happened later, don't you?
Even so, it was a great goal. It was a good finish. I liked that one, and the fact that I'd been vocal about not getting goals from midfield last season, and actually that we'd not addressed that. As good as Rothwell is at striking the ball, as handy as Tanaka looks, we weren't getting any goals from midfield, and the fact that he's popped up and got a couple now, I think is a big deal. So you know that for the fact that it came from a midfielder, because you know last season Ampadu scored 2, but he were at centre back when he did it. He didn't score from midfield. So you know I think for me the fact that it was a midfielder and that he just stepped up and just walloped it from outside box.
Those goals they were against Peterborough.
Yeah,
the Ampadu goals.
Yeah, they were. So you know, the fact that we're now starting to get... So Stroik's got, 2 or 3? Rodon's scored. Tanaka's got a couple. It's a big deal that we're getting goals from other places.
Yeah, Bogle's on 3 now, isn't he?
Yeah, but to be fair, Ayling scored goals when he was at right back as well. So that's sort of no change there.
But yeah, you know, the fact that we can make changes on the wings and whoever comes in scores goals, the fact that we are getting some from elsewhere, it's a big deal. And you know, the fact that Piroe's going to have to lead the line a lot this season. It's not on him to score all of the goals, which you know that's a point that you were making earlier, Paul. So that's a big deal for me. So any final comments on the match before I just do our traditional exit speech that we do?
Just a quick one on Solomon. I just want to say about Solomon that when he wasn't looking fit, sort of towards at the start of the season, now he's really going some now, and I think so much time we spent a couple of seasons in the Premier League where we'd have games that would pass us by where we couldn't lay a glove on anyone. I think teams in the Championship are seeing what it's like to play against Premier League opposition in Manor Solomon, who can literally just about beat any man he comes up against. He is definitely he's a fantastic footballer. And he should be someone we look at signing because he is top class, and I love watching him play football. Now he's fit and firing. He's very good, and he's going to get a few more goals, I think, for sure.
And if he can stay clear of injuries, I think that's the only question mark around him, isn't it? There's no question about his capability.
I think the only worry is probably March when the international break comes around again, which obviously screwed us last season. I think we need to hope Wales are not up to much. I don't know what the schedule is, but a few of our lads go quite a way, don't they? And then Solomon is, I'm pretty sure,
he's Tanaka,
Israel, isn't he?
He's not human though, so I wouldn't worry about Tanaka too much.
Yeah,
the thing last season with
he doesn't sleep.
The international break last season was Wales not making it through to the Europeans, wasn't it? So I think that took a lot for them to get over, and I think it knocked in particular Ampadu, James, and Rodon, and then you had
James missed his penalty, didn't he?
Yeah, and you had Aronson with USA as well, which didn't sit very well either. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that happening again this year. Hopefully. It
also coincided with Rutter having a hernia operation, after which he just wasn't the same player when he came back in. So
he wasn't. He wasn't good for ages, was he? After that,
no.
Even
no, he wasn't. So I think it is a fair point, and I guess that's the only question mark. I mentioned Piroe and that 9 position. If we don't get somebody in, it's a case of if we do have an issue up front, that's the only place really that we look light. Everywhere else, we've got our starting centre backs. Regardless of whether you think Ampadu's a better centre back, and I happen to agree with Smarty, I think he is. Stroke's a starting centre back because Ampadu's a starting midfielder. So the fact that you can drop your starting centre back through injury and slot somebody else in and barely see an issue, even though Gruev was still out at the time, he's only come back during that period. It shows that we've got at least from an 18, 20 players, we've got that strength there. It's just beyond that, and especially at 9, that I think we need that bit more depth. Cool. Thank you, Lou. Anybody else? Any more comments before we go?
Gruev was back. Genuinely, I'd forgotten that he was back.
Yeah.
I don't mean that
big deal, isn't it?
But it's just like, fucking hell. That's ridiculous that we've got in the centre of midfield. It's stupid.
It is. It is. And if you consider the players that didn't come on, we had Gilavogi, we had Verber, and we had Gruev. 3 international players. All right, Gilavogi's beyond that now, but there's some real experience there as well. So it is important that we've got that. And then you look at the players that we did bring on, like Ramazani and Nonto, and see the effect that they had. It is a big deal.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Smarty. Anything else from you before we go?
No, I'm just, even though my face might give an opposite sort of feeling, but I've had a couple of messages saying, smiley, miserable bastard. But I am actually quite happy that we won 7-0 yesterday. I just don't have one of those faces that portray that sort of feeling.
Resting bitch face.
That's exactly what I replied. So like,
you have been quite sassy. You've been quite sassy tonight, but I like it.
Yeah,
this weekend, individual. Have you not met him?
Just wait until Tuesday. Actually, I'm not on Tuesday. It's fine. I've got two esteemed gentlemen in yourself, Lou, and obviously Paul as well. I can't be my usual sassy self. Keep it. Play it down a little bit, haven't we? We've got guests.
That's it. Fair enough. I just want to say thank you to everybody that's got involved in the comments. It is a big deal for us that people get involved, and obviously it's going to be lively after a game like that. But we do appreciate everybody getting involved. Thank you very much, Lou and Paul, for joining myself and Smarty tonight. It's appreciated. And yeah, just the usual spiel. So if you're going through a storm or have recently been through one and you're a man over 18, perhaps Andy's Man Club Leeds may be able to help you. We have venues in Kirkstall, Pudsey, Central Leeds, Beeston, Seacroft and Morley, open from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. every Monday barring bank holidays. They also run weekly and monthly social events with the aim to get men talking and to smash the stigma around men's mental health. Details of the venues and everything they're doing is at Andy's Man Club Leeds Facebook, so give them a follow and help spread the word. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time tonight. We'll leave it there, and we will be back on... It's Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah.
We haven't got a game Tuesday, have we? It's Wednesday. Yeah. So we'll be back on Tuesday night, and then there'll be a B&C beyond that, so probably Thursday night. We will see you there. Thank you very much, everybody.